Now it's Our Miss Brooks, starring Eve Arden. Well, the lessons to be learned on the athletic field are an important part of school activities, as our Miss Brooks, who teaches English at Madison High, is the first to admit. And in this sphere, there's nothing quite like the friendly baseball rivalry between Madison and Clay City High.
No, indeed. There's been nothing quite as friendly since the Martins clobbered the Coys. The traditional Madison Clay High baseball game has been a no-holds-barred affair for 30 years. And this year's game promised to be the bitterest of all, since the winner would gain permanent possession of the silver loving cup provided by Madison's founder, Yodar Critch. Without our star pitcher, Stretch Snodgrass, though, we wouldn't have much chance to win. And this catastrophe seemed imminent last Thursday morning as Mr. Boynton was driving me to school. It's nice to have you driving me to school for a change. Instead of Walter Denton, I mean.
Oh, I'm glad to oblige, Miss Brooks. His car is laid up, as I understand.
Yes, I think it has a touch of the virus.
Would you mind sitting a little closer to me, please?
No, I wouldn't mind at all. There, is that better?
A little closer yet.
All righty. How's that?
Still closer.
Why, Mr. Boynton, what's behind these unexpected overtures?
Those springs you were sitting on are about to go right through the upholstery.
Oh, well, is that...
See? You hadn't moved, you would have landed right in my lap.
Now he tells me.
Well, this old car isn't much, but I'd hate to lose it. At least it gets me where I want to go, and it never runs out of gas.
Then it'll never get me where I want to go. That is, I can see why you want to hang on to it.
Well, that's just it, Miss Brooks. I don't know if I'll be able to.
Why not? Does it use too much coal? Or oil? But it's all paid for, isn't it?
Yes, but... Well, George Gifford, Clay City's biology teacher, has been needling me for weeks on how badly Clay City was going to beat Madison this year. You know how I disapprove of gambling, but finally my baser instincts got the better of me, and I agreed to a wager.
A wager, Mr. Boynton?
Mm-hmm. I agreed to bet him this car.
Against what?
The new suit.
Well, if he didn't throw in an extra pair of pants, you got the worst of it. All in all, I guess it's a fair bet.
Well, it was until a few days ago. But if Stretch can't pitch today, we're sunk. When Clay High's principal, Jason Brill, asked the head of the Board of Education to review the scholastic records of the two teams, he knew exactly what he was doing. Stretch's head was the only one really on the block.
Well, that part of him we can spare. It's his arm we can't afford to lose.
Now, you know what I mean, Miss Brooks. I don't think his record will stand the inspection of the cold light of day.
His record won't stand inspection on a hot night in the coal mine. But he may still be eligible to pitch today if he can pass the general quiz the board ordered Mr. Conklin to give him.
I'm afraid he has about as much chance as a...
Well, maybe one snowball didn't melt down there.
Well, there's no sense brooding about it. Anyway, if Stretch does pitch, and we do win today, I've made up my mind to take you to the circus tonight.
Really?
Mm-hmm. Remember the swell time we had at the circus last year?
It was fun at that. At least until you tried to stay one round with that prize fighter who billed himself the blindfolded marvel.
Well, it was worth a try at the $50 he was offering, wasn't it? As I recall, I needed the money for some work my dentist was doing on my teeth.
Oh, that's right. And after the fight, you had less teeth to worry about. But on second thought, why pay good money to see a circus when we can catch a free one at school?
Well, what do you mean, Miss Brooks?
Maybe Mr. Conklin will let us watch Stretch trying to answer that quiz. Well, we got to school in plenty of time today, Mr. Boynton. I guess it's just as well that we didn't go... Oh, here's Walter Denton.
I wish I could say good morning, but it isn't. This may well be the blackest day in Madison's history.
Come now, Walter. All hope isn't lost.
Oh, just about, Mr. Boynton. The Yoda Critch Memorial Cup is about to become the permanent property of the students of Clay City High.
But the game hasn't even been played yet.
That's right, Walter. We may still win that loving cup.
Are you kidding, Mr. Boynton? Without Stretch, we couldn't win a moist paper cup.
Is that the reason you're walking around like a St. Bernard with a hangover?
Or what other reason could there be? You don't think for one moment the 4 weeks allowance I've bet on the game has anything to do with it.
Well, if Stretch passes Mr. Conklin's quiz this morning, you may still win your bet, Walter.
Well, whatever chance he did have went out the window last night, Miss Brooks. While all we loyal, industrious pupils were home studying, Stretch was at the circus.
How do you know?
Yeah, I sat right in back of him. Not only that, he was with Judy Brill.
Jason Brill's daughter?
I doubt if Judy's his son. But Mr. Brill isn't missing a single bet to keep Stretch from playing, is he?
Well, I'll say he's not. Judy even got Stretch to fight the blindfolded marvel.
He didn't. Was he badly hurt?
Sure. Stretch almost killed him. One punch and he was colder than Mr. Conklin's heart. Well, I never saw such
What was that about Mr. Conklin's heart, Denton?
Oh, Mr. Conklin. Yeah, I was saying nothing was bolder than your heart, sir.
I'm pressed for time, so I'll accept that for now. Miss Brooks, Mr. Boynton, I'm glad I ran into you. I'd like you to come into my office for a few minutes. I want your assistance.
Oh, could you use me too, sir?
Not even as a bookend. Now, come along, you two. Yes, sir. Now, please sit down. No doubt you are aware of the intense rivalry existing between Jason Brill and myself. That the man will go to any lengths to defeat my school is evidenced by his latest bit of skullduggery in trying to eliminate my star pitcher from today's game.
Yes, sir, and we don't think it's a bit fair.
And neither do I, Miss Brooks. But it isn't the victory that's so important to me. It's the spirit of decency, good sportsmanship, and my new hat. Friendly competition that should prevail. Your new hat, sir? Well, to be perfectly frank, that odious Brill did needle me into a wager. But new hat or not, Jason Brill's request to Mr. Stone to review our team's scholastic records at this time is contemptible. Then why give Snodgrass a quiz at all, sir? Because Mr. Stone has complied with Brill's request and ordered me to do so. However, there are more ways than one to skin a Brill.
Skin a Brill? Oh, that's very good, Mr. Conklin.
It's not that good.
No, it's not.
Now then, I have concocted some questions which I trust Snodgrass can answer. But since I am a man of such unwavering scholastic integrity, I wanted you two in here to witness the fairness of the test. Do you follow me?
Right into a suspension. I mean, yes, sir.
Ah, this must be Snodgrass now. Come in.
Good morning, Stretch.
Hello, Miss Brooks. Hi, Mr. Boynton. I hope you don't mind my asking Miss Brooks and Mr. Boynton to sit in while I give you your quiz, Snodgrass.
Oh, no, sir. I certainly ain't got no objections to them two, especially Miss Brooks. Gosh, I never learned no more from no teacher than I learned in her English class.
Quiet, Stretch, or we'll both be ineligible.
Now, Snodgrass, we are all pulling for you, boy. Don't leave us down. Let us down. I've decided to give you a simple verbal or oral examination.
Either one's okay with me.
We're dead.
Now, question A is a geography question. Have you done much traveling, Snodgrass?
No, sir. That was pretty easy, wasn't it?
That wasn't the question. Now, here it is. In traveling between New York and Philadelphia, through what cities do you pass?
Oh, let's see. My uncle made that trip once. Trenton, Jersey, Cleveland, St. Louis, and Omaha.
Stretch, just how was your uncle traveling?
On a troop train.
Oh, sir, it just wouldn't be patriotic not to accept that answer.
You're right. Our next question is one involving logic. Now listen carefully before you answer. A bat is to baseball as a wallet is to horseback riding, cheese, or money.
It is?
Not all three of them, Stretch. You have your choice.
Oh, okay. Horseback riding.
No, I'm afraid I can't accept that.
Well, I thought you gave me my choice.
Now, don't be an Indian giver, Mr. Conklin. Look, Stretch.
Permit me to question him, Miss Brooks. I have as much right to a nervous breakdown as anyone. Now, look, Stretch. A bat must be the same to baseball as a wallet is to money, mustn't it?
Not my wallet.
Next question. Let us assume you are a mailman standing on 1st Avenue, and your route starts at 2nd Avenue and ends at 4th Avenue. Your bag contains 4 pounds of mail for 2nd Avenue, 8 pounds for 3rd Avenue, and 14 pounds for 4th Avenue. You sling the bag over your shoulder, and what's the first thing you do?
I fall down.
Yes? In the next question, you are to rearrange the sentence I give you and tell me whether it's true or false.
I don't think I'll pitch again this year.
No, it's very simple. Honestly, it is. Now, here we go. Oranges, yellow are. Now, what is that?
Bad English.
I know it's bad English. I did that purposely. Now, is it true or false? Oranges, yellow are.
Yellow are than what?
That's the sentence. If you rearrange the words, it's oranges are yellow.
Gee, well, I always thought yellow oranges were called lemons.
Stretch. Mr. Conklin made the statement, oranges are yellow. Is he right or wrong?
Wrong.
Absolutely correct. How did you ever get it?
Well, if she'd asked me about you, I'd have said wrong long ago. Those oranges that fouled me up. Well, can I pitch this afternoon?
Only if you get out of here while you're ahead. Hurry up now, scoop.
Yes, ma'am.
Wait, no. Miss Brooks, since when do you take it upon yourself to... Osgood Conklin, principal speaking. Oh, hello, Mr. Stone. What an opportune time for you to call, sir. Snodgrass has just passed the general quiz I gave him, and he'll be able to pitch for what do you mean he won't be able to pitch? What? But why not, sir? He did. Yes, Mr. Stone. I'll be here when you arrive. Goodbye.
What did he say?
He said that Stretch is about to be declared ineligible again.
But why?
Because of professionalism, Miss Brooks. Mr. Stone is coming over at 3 this afternoon to investigate the situation personally.
But I don't understand, sir. How could Stretch be accused of professionalism?
It seems he attended the circus last night, and while he was there, he accepted money for lasting one round against someone billed as the blindfolded marble.
Well, despite all our efforts to make Stretch Snodgrass eligible for the big game with Clay City, it looked like we were stymied. Mr. Brill's charge of professionalism was a serious one. When I met Mr. Boynton in the school cafeteria, we determined to hold a council of war. However, even this was interrupted by an emergency message to call Mrs. Davis at home. When I did so, she recognized my voice immediately.
I'm so glad you called, Henry.
Mrs. Davis, do you know who this is?
Of course I do. Please send over 2.5 pounds of liver. Our cat is on a high-protein diet.
Mrs. Davis, this is Connie.
Why, Connie, What are you doing in the butcher shop?
I'm not in the butcher shop. I'm at school. You left word for me to call you back at once, that it was an emergency.
Oh, that explains it. I left word for the butcher to call me back at once, too. When I say it's emergency, everyone calls me back immediately.
Well, you're liable to call Wolf once too often.
Oh, no danger of that, dear. I don't know anybody named Wolf. Now, let's see. What was your emergency? Oh, yes. I wanted to know if Stretch passed his quiz this morning.
Yes, he passed, Mrs. Davis, but...
Well, that's a relief. It's not only that I wanted to see him pitch, but, well, I have a little confession to make.
A confession?
Yes. I made a little bet with Mrs. Jackson, the math teacher at Play City High.
What did you bet, Mrs. Davis?
I bet your room, Connie.
My room? Against what?
A cedar chest.
Oh, well, I hope it's comfortable.
Mrs. Jackson's been looking for a room for quite a while, Connie. But there's nothing to worry about, really. With Stretch pitching, Madison's a sure thing.
But Stretch has been accused of professionalism, Mrs. Davis. It's almost certain he'll be declared ineligible.
Oh, that's terrible, Connie. We've got to win that game. Is there anything I can do?
I doubt it, Mrs. Davis. I don't think you're in shape to pitch 9 innings. Well, I've got to get back to lunch now. I'll talk to you later.
All right, Connie. Goodbye.
Goodbye, dear. Well, of all the crazy bets to make.
Hello, Miss Brooks.
Oh, hello, Harriet. You look as if you'd heard about Stretch's predicament.
I have. Oh, and Daddy wants you to be in his office to greet Mr. Stone when he gets here right after school. Daddy had to go downtown about something, and he won't be back until after 3.
All right. Does your father think Stretch has any chance of being declared eligible today?
No, Miss Brooks. Mr. Stone's re-election as head of the Board of Education comes up in 2 weeks, and Daddy says this is a golden opportunity for him to display his thoroughness. But don't forget he's got Stretch on 2 counts, professionalism and brawling in public.
One more, and he won't even be eligible for parole.
Poor Stretch. He doesn't even know he's not going to pitch today.
Well, he will in a minute. He's coming over now.
Hi, Miss Brooks. Hi, Harriet. Boy, the old soup bone feels great. I'm really rearing to go this afternoon.
Yeah, and we're rearing to see you go. I'm afraid I have some bad news for you. It looks like you're not going to pitch this afternoon after all.
Well, why not? I passed the quiz this morning, didn't I? So I'm eligible to pitch, ain't I?
You're eligible to pitch?
Well, if you admit it, what's all the talk about?
Well, that's just it, Stretch. You're not illegible. Illegible. Illegal.
Eligible, Miss Brooks?
Well, I was getting warmer. Stretch, you've been charged with professionalism.
Professionalism? Well, that's a lie. I ain't never been no professor in my life.
That I can vouch for. But the professionalism of which you're accused stems from your knocking out the blindfolded marvel at the circus last night and taking money for it.
Oh, that's true. I flattened the poor fellow, but I didn't get no money for it yet.
You didn't?
What?
No, ma'am. The Marvel's bringing over the money himself right after school. He told me so on the phone.
Oh, but that's great, Stretch. Until the money's actually in your hands, you're not a professional.
Oh, I guess I ain't. But I told the guy to meet me in front of Mr. Conklin's office. I had to make it a simple place because with that blindfold on last night, he don't even know what I look like.
Oh, that's better yet. Stretch, I'm going to show up in your place.
You, Miss Brooks? Wouldn't you have kind of a tough time proving you was me?
Well, there are some basic differences between us. That isn't quite what I had in mind. Just promise me one thing, Stretch.
Yes, ma'am?
I want you to stay away from Mr. Conklin's office all afternoon. Don't even come near it. If you do that, you may still pitch in the big game. Do I have your word, Stretch?
Oh, sure, Miss Brooks. I'll start hiding right now. See you later.
Bye, Stretch. What are you driving at, Miss Brooks?
Just this, Harriet. Even if Stretch hasn't received the money yet, I'm afraid that in his present mood, Mr. Stone will still declare him ineligible.
So?
So, since Mr. Stone and the blindfolded Marvel are arriving at approximately the same time, I'm going to get to the fighter first and tell him Mr. Stone is Stretch. With a little needling on what a bum Stretch thinks he is, I'm hoping that the marvel will go for Mr. Stone, and Mr. Stone will go for the door in such a hurry that he'll forget about the investigation. Anyone for judo?
So, you see, Mr. Boynton, if Stretch hasn't received the money yet, he can't be accused of professionalism.
Particularly if he never does receive that money. And, Walter, there may be a way to prevent it.
How?
Well, if I've got it straight, the blindfolded marvel is coming over to pay Stretch at 3 o'clock. And since he doesn't know what Stretch looks like, anyone could receive the money in his place. You follow me?
You're like a hot rod with the cutout open.
All I've got to do is to impersonate Stretch.
You, Mr. Boynton?
Certainly. After getting a couple of my teeth knocked out last season, I feel that the marvel owes me something. Now I'm going to get it.
Excuse me, could one of your characters tell me where to find a guy named Stretch Snodgrass?
Oh, you must be the blindfolded bum. That he was telling us about. Stretch said he might be a few minutes late. Won't you step into our principal's office and wait?
Oh, yeah, okay.
You run along now, Harriet.
All right, Miss Brooks. I'll be keeping my fingers crossed.
I'm Miss Brooks. I teach English here.
English?
It's a sort of language. I'd recognize you anywhere from Stretch's description, but I'm rather surprised to see you alone.
Well, why?
Well, Stretch said you always had to have somebody with you to hold you up.
Hey, is he kidding? That one lucky punch of his is the first time I've been tagged since the doctor held me up by my heels.
Must have been a pretty big doctor. But, Mr. Marvel, while we're waiting, would you mind letting me look through your jaw?
Look through my jaw?
Yes, Stretch said it was made of glass.
What? Wait, that punk. Just wait till I get my hands on him.
Now, there's no point in getting excited about it. After all, why should you care just because someone you'll never see again thinks you're a gaily colored bird?
A gaily colored bird?
Well, his exact words were as yellow as a canary.
Just one punch. That's all I asked. Just one punch.
Oh, this might be Snodgrass now. Come in.
Well, I hope I ain't kept nobody waiting, but here I am to pick up my money.
What?
Are you Snodgrass?
That's me, all right. Stretch Snodgrass. You going to leave me have it?
Yeah. I'm going to leave you have it, all right.
Oh, no, wait, Marvel. This is our biology
So
teacher.
I'm a canary, am I?
Huh?
That even things up, eh?
Yes, indeed. That takes care of the teeth you missed last year. You've made a terrible mistake, Marvel. This isn't Stretch Snodgrass.
Well, then he's the one who made the mistake. Why did he say that I was...
Oh, this must be the Snodgrass you're expecting. Come in.
Eric told me the whole thing, Miss Brooks. Walk over my Joe Marvel.
Oh, no.
You Stretch Snodgrass?
What was that?
I said, are you Stretch Snodgrass?
Oh, yeah. That's me, all right.
Well, third down coming up. That was our principal, Mr. Conklin.
Your principal? Hey, what's going on here? When do I get Snodgrass?
Right now. Come on in.
Oh, hello, Miss Brooks. What in the world is this? The death scene from King Richard?
Well, if it isn't Stretch Snodgrass.
I beg your pardon.
Hey, now, wait a minute. This guy doesn't sound like the Snodgrass I spoke to on the phone.
That's the weakest alibi I've ever heard. Maybe you were right about the blindfolded marvel being yellow, Stretch.
I'll show you who's yellow. Put up your dukes, Snodgrass.
My dukes?
Here's something to remember me by.
Mr. Marvel, get up. Well, what do you know? He has got a glass jaw.
Miss Brooks, starring Eve Arden, transcribed, was produced and directed by Larry Burns, written by Arthur Oldsberg and Al Lewis, with the music of Bud Gluskin. Mr. Conklin was played by Gail Gordon. This is the United States Armed Forces Radio and Television Service.
Now it's Our Miss Brooks, starring Eve Arden. During the course of the school year, our Miss Brooks, who teaches English at Madison High, has constantly shown a rare genius for getting into the doghouse with her principal, Mr. Conklin.
I've gotten into it with him so often, he's even thinking of building me one of my own. But about a month ago, I was given an unexpected opportunity to redeem myself for all my mishaps during the past year. Mr. Conklin asked his teachers and students to volunteer for certain school projects, and he permitted me to take over his favorite spring project, the school garden. I was rather surprised at first until Mr. Conklin explained that the garden is 200 yards behind our school, and he needs that much space between us for self-preservation. Last Thursday morning, I decided to get up early and have a look at my handiwork before class. But as I went into our dinette for a quick cup of coffee, my landlady had a little surprise for me.
Connie, instead of bacon and eggs this morning, I fixed you something rare and exotic. How does it look, dear?
Indigestible. Oh, I'm sorry, Mrs. Davis. That was unkind of me. You tell me what that stuff is, and I'll eat it.
Oh, it's only some arrowroot, papaya, kukui, and poha.
I still say you tell me what it is, and I'll eat it.
Dear, these are Hawaiian fruits and vegetables. My neighbor, Mrs. Anderson, is vacationing in Honolulu, and she sent me a whole crate full of the stuff.
Tell you the truth, I'm not really very hungry this morning anyway.
Oh, dear, I had a feeling you wouldn't go for this Hawaiian mess. But, Connie, if you tried it, don't you think you might get used to it?
Well, perhaps. Actually, you won't even need this stuff, Mrs. Davis. In another few days, I'm going to treat you to a batch of real fresh homegrown vegetables, right out of the school garden that Walter Denton and I planted.
Oh, that's right. The inter-school gardening contest is in a few weeks, isn't it? But how do you know the vegetables will come up in time?
Oh, they'll come up, even if Mr. Conklin has to plant me underneath to push them up. He's really determined to beat out Jason Brill for the trophy this year, particularly since Clay's principal won the award last year. Oh, you never saw such a vegetable garden. Radishes, celery, tomatoes, spinach.
But what did Mr. Conklin's garden produce?
A half-acre of night-blooming jasmine. He'd bought the wrong seeds. Oh, he's warned me if I fail him in this project, I won't have an evening to myself the rest of the semester.
Oh, but Connie, that isn't fair. I'm sure he hasn't been that strict with the rest of his faculty.
Well, perhaps he doesn't have to be. So far, Mr. Boynton's done a good job handling the cafeteria. Miss Miller's tossed out most of the school rubbish.
What about Miss Enright?
I think Miss Miller missed her. You mean Miss Enright's project? Well, that one really confuses me. She chose as her project the care and feeding of Catherine, the school goat and mascot.
Well, maybe Miss Enright likes goats, Connie.
Well, maybe so. She's certainly been trying to get mine for years. Well, I don't suppose I'll get it, Mrs. Davis. Hello?
Miss Brooks? Walter, I have terrible news for you, Miss Brooks. Awful news. Disaster has finally struck.
What is it, Walter? What happened? You're not hurt, are you?
Oh, no, nothing like that. This is much worse, much worse. Oh, this is terrible, simply awful. I just went back to our school garden, and there isn't any.
No school garden? Not a thing? Walter, you don't mean it's completely barren.
Put 2 skulls there, Miss Brooks, and you've got Death Valley.
Yes, and I know just whose skulls Mr. Conklin will use for landscaping. That doesn't seem possible, Walter. You sure nothing came up?
Well, only one thing while I was there, Miss Brooks. You gopher.
Funny, that's the one thing we didn't plan. Well, I'll come right down and take a look, Walter. Goodbye.
Goodbye, Miss Brooks. And if you draw up a suicide pact, count me in.
Honey, I couldn't help overhearing you. What happened to your garden, dear?
It goofed. Well, now, I'd better get down to school at once.
Good morning to my old friend, the genial Miss Brooks.
That's 3 misstatements in the same sentence. Good morning, Miss Enright.
And you remember Catherine, our school mascot, Miss Brooks? I know Catherine remembers you. Don't you remember Miss Brooks, Catherine?
You won't get any argument out of me this morning, Catherine.
Oh, why so glum today, darling? Your mood hardly becomes that delightful, flowery spring hat you're carrying. You know, it seems I saw the exact duplicate on someone else recently.
The exact duplicate?
Oh, no, not the exact duplicate. The hat on the horse's head had holes for its ears. Now, darling, I don't want to detain you. I imagine the reason you're back here is to catch up with Mr. Conklin. Catherine and I passed him just a moment ago on his way out to your garden.
Mr. Conklin? Mm-hmm. On his way out to the garden? Are you certain?
Of course, darling. You remember Mr. Conklin, don't you, Catherine?
My sentiments exactly. But if he hasn't seen the garden yet, maybe I can still head him off. Now, if you'll excuse me.
Okay!
He's seen it. Well, I guess that finishes me. But I still can't figure out what happened to that garden.
Well, maybe you should have had someone with a green thumb to help you, like me.
No, thanks. I would have spent half my time keeping your green thumb out of my blue eye.
I feel it's the least I could have done after the help you've given me with my project. In the month I've had Catherine in my custody, she must have put on at least 25 pounds. And I owe it all to you.
To me? But I didn't feed her.
Oh, but you did, darling. Every night for the past 3 weeks I've let her graze in your garden.
Huh? You let her graze in my garden? Then the vegetables did come up after all.
You were only long enough to go down Catherine's throat. Oh, how that animal can eat. I must admit, I helped her.
That must have been quite a sight. 2 old goats grazing together in the...
Now, darling, let's not be bitter. Just resign yourself to the fact that you've been outwitted as usual. With your current project a failure, you will be working evenings for Mr. Conklin, and dear Mr. Boynton will have more time for me.
Oh, then that's the reason you volunteered to take care of our mascot. You planned this whole thing.
Like a general plans a campaign.
Well, if I had a medal, I'd know just where I'd like to pin it. But I still can't believe that 1 goat could eat that much.
Well, you just don't know Catherine. Why, she'll eat anything. I've seen her when she... Darling, where did you put your hat?
My hat? Well, it's right here in my... Good grief. While we've been talking, Catherine's eaten it.
Oh, I am so sorry.
Well, I don't suppose there's any use worrying about that. Anyway, not with the trouble heading this way.
Oh, here you are, Miss Green Thumb. Miss Enright, would you please excuse us? I have something I want to say to Miss Brooks.
Certainly, Mr. Conklin. Say goodbye to Mr. Conklin and Miss Brooks, Catherine.
And a goodbye to you, Catherine.
I suppose you know where I've just been, Miss Brooks?
Yes, sir. You've seen our garden, and I'm back in the doghouse again.
In it? You practically own it, lassie. Miss Brooks, what happened to my garden?
Of talking could convince Mr. Conklin that our school goat had eaten up my vegetable garden, my only hope was for the goat to break out in a rash of Brussels sprouts. But with the school garden contest a mere 2 weeks away, and my funeral scheduled for the day after if we didn't win, at noontime, I decided to seek the advice of my favorite fellow teacher. Since the school cafeteria was his current project, I knew I'd find Mr. Boynton in the kitchen. So I went down there just before lunch, opened the door. Oh, my goodness. I'm terribly sorry, Mr. Boynton. Mr. Boynton? Mr. Boynton, where are you?
Down here, under the goat, Miss Brooks.
Oh, I'm awfully sorry. Here, let me help you up. Well, luckily nothing happened to your new white suit.
It's my old blue serge. I was milking Catherine.
Milking Catherine?
Well, since Catherine, the goat, is the school mascot, I thought maybe I'd introduce goat's milk on the menu and let the students try it. What do you think of the idea?
After one taste, the new school mascot will be Elsie the cow. It's a shame the milk spilled all over you, though.
Oh, there's no great harm done. My suit was old anyway, and I can wipe the milk off with this towel. Luckily, nothing happened to my new Panama hat. You like it, Miss Brooks? Walter Denton said he thought it was real nervous.
I'm in trouble again.
Trouble? What kind of trouble, Miss Brooks?
Well, that goat ate up Mr. Conklin's garden.
Ate up the garden? Well, Miss Brooks, no goat could eat that much.
Mr. Boynton, that goat didn't put on 25 pounds in the last month due to an underactive thyroid. You see, Miss Enright purposely turned her loose to graze in order to...
I can't believe it, Miss Brooks. Miss Enright may have her little faults, but she certainly isn't a vandal. No, I'm sure that you're...
I am, dear Mr. Boynton, to pick up... Oh, my goodness, Mr. Boynton, you're covered with milk. What happened?
Your goat ate so much, it exploded all over him.
Miss Enright, Miss Brooks is under the impression that you encouraged Catherine to eat up Mr. Conklin's garden.
Well, that's an utterly fantastic idea. She has absolutely no basis...
Well, there's no use worrying about that now. Anyway, there is still 2 weeks until the contest, and anything can happen in that time.
Correction, darling. There were 2 weeks, but those 2 weeks don't exist anymore.
Don't tell me Catherine ate them up, too.
No, not exactly. I happened to be covering the office of Mr. Conklin during the last period, and Mr. Stone called.
Mr. Stone called?
Yes, Miss Brooks. We had a little small talk. When suddenly, out of a clear blue sky, he decided to hold the garden contest tomorrow instead of waiting 2 weeks.
And I have a pretty good idea who dropped that clear blue sky on my head. Miss Enright, you just reminded me there's one thing I forgot to plant last week.
What's that?
You. And in the spirit of friendliness, I suggest you teach that walking garbage disposal not to eat people's hats.
Oh, darling, do you still think Catherine ate your hat? Mr. Boynton, you know goats don't really eat things like that.
Of course they don't. They'd get deathly ill. Now, really, Miss Brooks, I think that you... Hey, what happened to my new straw hat?
What new straw hat?
If you'll look closely, you'll notice how perfectly the red feather blends with Catherine's tongue.
Hey, the fool goat did eat my hat.
Oh, now, really, Mr. Boynton. Come, Catherine. It's suddenly gotten rather unfriendly in here.
That could also be construed as a burp.
Hey, maybe that fool goat did eat your vegetables at that, Miss Brooks.
Of course she did. But with Mr. Stone judging the school gardens tomorrow, it really doesn't make any difference who's to blame for what. I'm sunk.
Yeah, I guess so. Oh, say, why not forget your troubles and help me with my shopping this afternoon? I've got to buy next week's groceries for the cafeteria.
Still, there must be something we could do to... Next week's groceries for the cafeteria?
Mm-hmm. I've got to run down to Tony's produce market and buy $50 worth of celery, lettuce, tomatoes, beets.
Mr. Boynton, would you mind terribly if those vegetables you're going to buy made one stopover between Tony's and the school refrigerator?
One stopover? Where?
In our school garden.
What? Miss Brooks, what are you talking about?
Just this. Before tonight is over, we're going to transform that spot from Conklin's desert oasis to Tony's garden paradise. Oh, isn't it dark and peaceful back here, Mr. Boynton? Just you and I and $50 worth of Tony's vegetables.
Yes, it sure is dark tonight. Hey, it's lucky we have this flashlight. Have you ever thought what we would have done if that little bulb had gone out?
Constantly. It would have been difficult to plant all those vegetables.
Yes, it would. Frankly, Miss Brooks, I didn't like this whole idea. And if Miss Enright hadn't played that trick on you, I never would have been a party to it.
I realize that, Mr. Boynton, but there was nothing else we could do under the circumstances. Anyway, since most of the vegetables are planted now, let's not think about them anymore. Let's think about us.
Us?
Yes, my hands have been in the ground so much the last hour, they're cold, Mr. Boynton.
Oh, mine are too, Miss Brooks.
Well, let's warm them up, shall we? What would you suggest?
Suggest? How about trotting a couple of laps around the athletic field?
Mr. Boynton, I said my hands are cold, not my feet.
Oh. Well, suppose I just reach across and... Holy cow, your fingers are freezing, Miss Brooks.
You're holding a bunch of carrots. Mr. Boynton, isn't that another flashlight over there?
Where? Oh, why, you're right, Miss Brooks. Somebody's coming. Oh, we can't be found here.
Not with a hot vegetable garden. Let's get behind that big oak tree until they pass by.
No, you get behind the oak. I'll get behind the small elm right near it. Now, if we both get behind that oak, we'd have to huddle too close together so as not to be seen.
We're going to miss that elm, aren't we? I'm certain the oak will hide the two of us easily.
Well, all right, Miss Brooks, but please come along. I only hope whoever that is.
Sure, you must be mistaken, Harriet. I saw no flashlight in the vicinity of my bald vegetable garden.
Well, I guess it was a firefly then. Can you tell a flashlight from a firefly from a distance, Daddy?
Well, of course. If you can hear it breathing, it's a firefly. There are no fireflies around this time of year, child, and do stop dropping those cucumbers all over the place.
But, Daddy, do you think it's honest, buying all these vegetables and laying them out in your garden just to win a prize?
Well, it's not dishonest. We're merely giving these poor, friendless little vegetables a home for a day or so.
But, Daddy, is it honest?
Harriet, thank goodness you've been brought up to be a good, honest child, and your daddy dearly loves you. But there are times when he devoutly wishes he could trade in his scrupulously honest daughter for a slightly sneaky son.
Daddy,
Now, Harriet, not another word. Just drop your bag of vegetables in front of that oak tree and start distributing the stuff in even rows.
Well, all right, Daddy.
I'll start planting my tomatoes in this row of 2-foot-high celery, and you start planting your vegetables over there. We'll soon have this barren desert looking like I'll start planting my tomatoes in this row of 2-foot-high celery.
Oh. And look at all these beautiful potatoes and beets and onions and radishes.
Oh, what hath heaven wrought? A few short hours ago, a wasteland, barren, denuded, and now this miracle that passeth human understanding. I must be... Harriet, is there a bright, shimmering glow about my head?
Gee, I don't understand how they... Oh, Daddy, that light. Over there, there's somebody coming.
You're right, child. There is somebody. Great Scott, we mustn't be caught here. Quick, hide behind that elm tree. I'll get behind the oak. I don't think anyone could see me behind here. Phew. Certainly wouldn't want any of my teachers to know what I was up to tonight. There isn't one of them I could trust to keep my secret.
Not even Mr. Boynton?
No, not even Mr. Boynton. True, he's a just and honest man with a highly developed moral sense, but you can never be certain.
But how about Miss Brooks, sir? She can keep a secret.
Old blabberlip? Why, if she kept a secret bottled up in herself for more than 2 minutes, she'd blow a silly cork.
I don't know about that, Mr. Conklin.
Oh, well, take my word for it, Miss Brooks. If she ever saw me here in this garden at this hour and knew the scheme I had, take my word for it, Miss Brooks! Yeah! I've been talking to myself.
No, sir. And that thing you have your arm around is not a branch, but Mr. Boynton.
Hello, Mr. Conklin.
And I suppose this is not really an oak tree, but Miss Perkins of our math department.
Shall we cut our initials in her, sir, and find out?
Shall we close our little traps, Miss Brooks? Oh, Miss Brooks, things are beginning to add up. Then it was you who laid out all those beautiful vegetables.
Yes, sir. It was Brooks that wrought before, not heaven.
Well, since we're all in the same boat, there's nothing. Say, if that person out there with the flashlight is starting to pick up our vegetables.
Why, the hijacker. Who could it be, anyway?
My guess is that it's Jason Brill. He'd stop at nothing to keep that gardening trophy at Clay City High.
But do you think he'd stoop to anything so low?
He has a reputation for being the most unprincipled principal in the country. But we'll hand him the shock of his life. Grab a nice, juicy vegetable, both of you. I'll take this watermelon.
I've got something here that weighs a ton. Must be an oversized squash.
That's my handbag.
All right, now, all right. Attention. Get ready to jump him. When I give the signal, we charge. Ready now? 1, 2... Geronimo! Nice work. That's right, Boynton. Hold him by the hair while I shine this light in his face. Oh, God, it's Mr. Stone!
Conklin, stop sitting on my chest this instant.
Oh, yes, sir. Of course. Yes. Oh, Miss Brooks, get up. You're sitting on the head of the board.
Sir, where I'm sitting is a mighty peculiar place for a head. Oh, the head of the board.
Let me help you up, sir. I'm terribly sorry, Mr. Stone. We thought, Boynton, you may stop pulling Mr. Stone's hair now.
I was just combing out the watermelon seed.
Oh, no, leave them there, Boynton. I love the taste of watermelon as it dribbles down from my forehead, and I catch the drops on my tongue. Conklin, what was the meaning of that dastardly attack by the three of you on my person?
Oh, well, I'm terribly sorry, sir. Terribly sorry. Believe me, sir, we thought you were a vandal. We've had vandals around here lately. That's why we were all here tonight, to stand guard. But why are you here, sir?
I happened to drop by your home to make sure you'd been informed about my moving up the date for the garden contest, and your wife said I might find you in your office. On the way over, I thought I'd like to take a peek at your garden.
Well, how do you like it, sir?
Well, it's exquisite. It's simply exquisite.
Oh, thank you. Seems only yesterday that all this was just a barren, desolate wasteland.
Matter of fact, it seems like only a half hour ago to me. Do you like the celery, Mr. Stone?
Beautiful, Miss Brooks. I don't believe I've ever seen celery stalks so high. And these cabbages, magnificent, and what in heaven's name is this angry-looking, furry vegetable here, Conklin?
Angry-looking, furry vegetable?
I knew Mrs. Davis would get rid of that stuff somewhere.
And these fruits here look quite familiar to me. Mrs. Stone and I once spent a summer in Hawaii. Conklin, how did you ever get kukui and arrowroot and papaya to grow in this climate?
Well... there's really quite a fascinating story attached to that. Tell him the fascinating story, Miss Brooks.
Yes, sir. It's a fascinating story. Well, we knew ordinary farming methods would never grow us any Hawaiian fruit, so we watered the ground here daily with pineapple juice.
Oh, really now? And tell me, Miss Brooks, how did you manage to grow a fruit with a little tag on the bottom saying, "Welcome to beautiful Hawaii"?
Well, frankly, sir, those tags, "Welcome to Hawaii," were just sent to the three of us today.
And just why were they sent to the three of you, Miss Brooks?
Because right now, it looks like we'll be teaching there next semester.
Miss Brooks, starring Eve Arden, transcribed, was produced and directed by Larry Burns, written by Arthur Oldsberg and Lou Derman, with the music of Bud Gluskin. Mr. Conklin was played by Gail Gordon. Our Miss Brooks, starring Eve Arden, is a presentation of the United States Armed Forces Radio and Television Service.
You're listening to WW.
Now it's Our Miss Brooks, starring Eve Arden.
School was out last week, but our Miss Brooks, who teaches English at Madison High, still hasn't decided where she's going on her vacation. However, since Mr. Boynton went right ahead with his plans for the summer without even consulting her, she was determined to go out with other men while he was away. So even before he left, she decided to put herself back in circulation.
It was the only thing to do. But by the time I put myself back in circulation, most of the eligible men were oversubscribed. Nevertheless, I did meet one rather pleasant fellow who dated me a few times, a used car dealer named Sam Peterson, or, as he was known to the trade, Psychoneurotic Sam. Although we weren't exactly soulmates, Sam and I did get along quite well. So well, in fact, that he let me have one of his cars for an errand I had to run for my landlady last Friday morning. Unfortunately, it wasn't one of his better models, because it broke down 10 miles outside of town, and I had to get a taxi to drive me home. The ride back was quite uneventful until we pulled up at my house when I received a nasty shock.
That'll be $4.50, lady.
What? How much is it without the radio and the heater?
That's the fare, $4.50.
But that seems rather exorbitant. After all, you hardly drove me 10 miles.
$4.50.
Is that all you can say, $4.50?
No, it'll be an even $5 with the tip. Could I have it, please?
Well, the truth of the matter is, I don't have the entire amount on me. I can let you have part of it, though.
How much?
43 cents. Look, if you could just give me a little time.
Sorry, I've run into situations like this before, lady, and 9 times out of 10, you never see the people again.
But I'm a school teacher.
That's your problem. I'm sticking around till I get my dough.
Well, then I'll go in and see if I can borrow it from my landlady. You wait right here.
If you don't mind, I'll go in with you.
But you'll see me go in the front door.
It's the back door I'm worried about. It's not that I think you're dishonest, lady.
I know. It's just that you don't trust me. All right, then, let's go. Just as soon as I see my landlady, I'll settle up with you. I just hope she's in.
Oh, Connie, there you are. I was wondering when you'd be back there.
Oh, hello, Mrs. Davis. This is Mr.
Finch. Fred Finch.
Oh, of course. How are you? I've heard so much about you, I feel as if I'd known you for years.
Mrs. Davis.
You heard about me?
Yes, indeed. And the reports weren't a bit exaggerated. Oh, he's as cute as he can be, Connie.
Mrs. Davis, Mr. Finch is a cab driver.
Well, that's nice. It's about time you were getting away from biologists. Breakfast is on the table, and there's plenty for all 3 of us. So you go right ahead in, Mr. Finch.
Well, thanks. I wouldn't mind a bite at that.
Go right into the dinette, Mr. Finch. We'll join you in a minute.
Well, thanks.
Well, at least now I won't have to worry about the tip. Mrs. Davis, what gave you the idea that I'd been dating Mr. Finch or anybody else besides Mr. Boynton? I haven't mentioned anything to you.
I know, dear. But Mrs. Jackson saw you out driving last Sunday with some man. And then Mrs. Lane saw you at the movies with him Tuesday evening. And Mrs. Stewart saw you in the bowling alley with a friend on Wednesday.
And where did I go last night?
Well, I don't know, dear. The reports aren't in yet. Your secret is safe with me.
I have no secrets, Mrs. Davis. The gentleman inside happens to be a taxi driver.
Well, that's nothing to be ashamed of. Taxi drivers make wonderful husbands.
I'm afraid you still don't understand. I owe him some money for a ride. The fare came to $4.50, and I don't have it. Do you follow me?
Pardon me, dear. I think I hear the phone.
You follow me, all right. Could you at least let me have part of it?
I'd like to, Connie, but I spent my last few dollars. Now, who's that at the back door?
Oh, it's probably Walter Denton. I promised Mr. Boynton I'd lend him my valise, and Walter said he'd drive me over there this morning, but that was before I borrowed my friend's car, and before I had to take a taxi, and before I had to borrow some money to pay for it, and before I wished I was dead. Come in, Walter. The door's open.
There's the answer to your problem, Connie. Walter and Mr. Boynton.
Oh, no. Walter's too young, and Mr. Boynton's too Mr. Boynton. Oh, you mean my monetary problem?
Yes. You've laid out money for Walter's lunches all term long. Not to mention what Mr. Boynton owes you for movies and for gas. Why not try to collect?
Good morning, ladies. Say, I just came through your dinette, and there's a man eating like mad in there.
Well, don't be jealous, Walter. You'll be past him in no time.
Yeah, I have a pretty good idea who he is. I guess the date Tuesday night was pretty successful, huh, Miss Brooks?
Walter, how did you know I was on a date Tuesday night?
Should I give you the one about the little old birdie flapping her beak at me?
No, and I'll thank you to be more respectful to Mrs. Davis.
No, Mrs. Davis didn't tell me. Harriet and I just happened to see you in the balcony of the State Theater that night.
Oh, I see. How did you like the picture?
When Harriet and I are in the balcony, who watches the picture?
Honey, there's something you wanted to talk to Walter about, remember?
Yes, Mrs. Davis.
Now, I'll go in and start the dishes.
Well, Walter, since you've already seen him, the man in the dinette happens to be a taxi driver.
Well, that's nothing to be ashamed of. Taxi drivers make wonderful husbands.
So I've heard lately. I'll be perfectly frank, Walter. This driver is here now because I haven't the $4.50 I owe him. However, since I've advanced you about $10 in lunch money during the past year...
Isn't that the front doorbell?
No, and it isn't the rear doorbell, telephone, or ice cream man. All I need is $4.50, Walter.
Well, you know I'd help if I could, Miss Brooks. But all the money I've got in the world is right here in my pants pocket. Well, you're welcome to that, of course.
Really?
Sure. I'll get it for you. If first I have to remove the rubber band from around the bottom of the pocket. There. Now I have to take away the staples from across the bottom of the pocket.
The staples?
That's in the case of pickpockets. Yeah, now, to remove the safety pin that holds the money in place.
A safety pin?
Well, here you are, Miss Brooks. $1.
Any pickpocket who got that dollar would deserve overtime. But since this is a desperate situation, I'll accept it. Thanks, Walter. Now, if you'll excuse me a minute. Mr. Finch, would you accept $1.50 toward my fare until tomorrow?
I also
Just talk around the egg.
I told you before, lady, I want my whole fare.
Well, then, would you wait here while I drive over with a student of mine and try to borrow it from a colleague?
No, ma'am. I'll take you over. I'm about finished anyway.
You know something, Mr. Finch?
What?
Mrs. Davis may have been right after all. You and I are going steady.
You hear a lot of talk about brotherhood these days, don't you? People getting along together, understanding each other's problems. Maybe that's the key word of it all, understanding. In other words, to practice brotherhood is easy through understanding. Easy because all you have to do is think about it.
Perhaps it's not quite that easy, though, to remember it, to practice it, and to live it. That's why we think it would be well for all of us to pay closer attention to some of the messages of the music of today. These messages will serve as a reminder to us of the deep meaning and vital importance of brotherhood. Listen. Really. If we only had love.
If we only had love.
Then with nothing at all.
Then with nothing at all.
But the little we are.
But the little we are.
We'll have conquered.
We'll have conquered.
All time.
All time.
And the stars.
And the stars.
Now there's a thought. Try a little music appreciation. Understanding the lyrics can lead to brotherhood.
Think about that.
I know you're cautious, Mr. Finch, but there's no reason to walk up to my friend's apartment with me.
Well, I just don't want to take any chances, Miss Brooks. Anyway, I wanted to see that you got this valise up here okay. It's kind of heavy.
Oh, that's right. You did lift it out of the cab when you handed it to me downstairs. Well, here we are.
Be right there. Oh, hello, Miss Brooks. Come in.
Thanks, Mr. Boynton.
Let me take your valise and... Oh, hello.
Mr. Boynton, meet Mr. Finch.
How are you?
Fine. I've heard a lot about you, Finch.
Say, I get around, don't I?
Please, Mr. Boynton, there's something I wanted to ask you. If Mr. Finch will excuse us for just a minute.
I was preparing a little early lunch for myself. I'm sure there'll be enough for two. Why not go into my kitchenette and help yourself, Mr. Finch?
Oh, no, thanks.
I'll be glad to.
As I say, no thanks, he'll be glad to.
It's right through that door.
Okay, don't rush yourself, Miss Brooks.
He's another Walter Denton with the grocery department.
Miss Brooks, I'm not one to criticize, but I believe you're acting in poor taste in this instance. In very poor taste.
What are you talking about, Mr. Boynton?
You know very well what I'm talking about. I should think you'd be more considerate toward a man you've known for 6 years than to bring your newest male companion to his apartment. I may be just a poor biology teacher, but I have some feelings.
You have? I mean, of course you have, Mr. Boynton, but this man is a taxi driver.
Taxi driver? I never thought you were that interested in money.
Look, Mr. Boynton, where did you get the idea that I'd go out with anyone besides you?
No, come now, Miss Brooks. I've got ears, I've got eyes.
And a mouth, and a chin, and the nicest...
Never mind the flattery. You knew I was going away in a few days. You might at least have waited until the body was cold.
When was it warm? You're assuming something that just isn't true. I've never seen you this jealous before, Mr. Boynton.
Jealous? Me jealous? Why, what a ridiculous idea. But I do have some sensitivity.
Well, so do I, Mr. Boynton. And not once did you mention a word about your vacation plans to me. And you knew I hadn't made any.
I was merely driving up to my parents' place for a few weeks. Why, if I thought you were interested, I'd most certainly would have invited you along.
Bingo!
You mean you'll come? Well, that's just fine. Oh, but I don't want you to think that your bringing a boyfriend to my apartment has influenced me in any way.
I reiterate, he's not a boyfriend. In fact, I can't go anywhere until I settle my taxi fare with him.
Then he really is just a cab driver?
To whom I owe $4.50. Now, I don't like to mention it, but I have advanced you $10 or $15 during the past term, so if you could let me have about 3 of it now, I could settle up. Or is the doorbell ringing?
I'd like to help you, Miss Brooks, but $2 is all I've got.
Then that's all I'll take. Thank you, Mr. Boynton. Now, if you'll excuse me for a minute. Well, here I am again, Mr. Finch. If you'll accept $3.50 toward my fare, I'll be able to settle the balance very soon.
Well, I think
you sound like one of my more backward pupils.
I told you before, and I'll tell you again. I want my whole fare, $8.
$8? What happened to the $4.50?
Oh, that was 2 hours ago.
Art Linkletter speaking. You hear a lot of talk about drugs today. Drugs named smack, speed, mescaline, LSD. And the frightening thing is the talk comes from the mouths of children. And the fact is that each day, hundreds of children as young as 8 and 9 years old are added to the list of those who idolize members of the drug cult. But even more frightening is the realization that parents of these children, rich and poor alike, won't face the fact that drugs can happen here. Now, in their own home, drugs can happen. To you, your children. Know more about drugs than your children do, and then be the kind of parent who can talk over the problem without hysteria. Not scare, but through understanding. Let your children know you love them as much as you do.
For information, write the American Social Health Association, 1740 Broadway, New York, 10019.
Well, so far, Miss Brooks has spent the entire morning trying to collect $8 cab fare, which she owes. What makes it doubly difficult is that the cab driver won't let her out of his sight until he's paid. As a last resort, she has decided to try to borrow the money from her principal, Mr. Conklin, who at the moment seems to be having a little trouble of his own.
The very idea of Mr. Stone asking me to entertain a member of the State Education Commission for the week he's in town. Why, that's Mr. Stone's job, not mine.
I know, Daddy. I'm just relaying Mr. Stone's message. He said I should give it to you as soon as I reached you.
Well, did you tell him we were practically ready to go to Crystal Lake today, Harriet? That your mother was already there?
Yes, Daddy.
And what did he say to that?
Nothing. He just chuckled.
Oh, I'll chuckle him. The nerve of the man asking me to postpone my vacation. What reason did he give?
He said he was going on his vacation.
Oh, well, if it's something important, I can certainly see why. He said he was going on his vacation. This is more than human flesh can bear. Why,
now, Daddy, please try to calm down.
I won't go through with it, Harriet. Let Mr. Nichols entertain himself. I wash my hands of the whole business. I absolutely refuse to have anything to do with it.
But Mr. Stone is head of the Board of Education, Daddy.
Oh, I know. I'm much too old to go back to teaching penmanship. But I wish there was some way out of this.
Oh, I'll get it, Daddy. Oh, hi, Miss Brooks. Welcome to La Maison Conklin. Come on in.
Thanks, Harriet.
Daddy's in the... Oh, hello.
Harriet, meet Mr. Mustard Plaster. Mr. Finch. Mr. Finch, this is Harriet Conklin.
How are you?
Oh, I'm fine, thanks.
I've heard a lot about you.
Why, Miss Brooks, how did you know what I was going to say?
Instinct, Harriet. Mr. Finch is a taxi driver. I know they make wonderful husbands, but the next time I'll find one with a slow meter.
Who is that, Harriet? Oh, you, Miss Brooks. What ill wind brings you over?
One step forward, ill wind. Mr. Conklin, meet Mr. Finch.
How are you?
He's a cab driver, Daddy. Isn't that romantic?
I knew she'd wind up marrying for money. How do you do?
There's something I wanted to ask you, sir. So if Harriet and Mr. Finch would excuse us...
Oh, sure we will. I just got through preparing lunch, Mr. Finch, so...
Say no more, Harriet. Mr. Finch will be glad to.
Well, it has been quite a while.
Just follow me, Mr. Finch.
See you in a few minutes.
Come into my den, Miss Brooks.
Thank you, sir.
Now, sit down, but be brief. I'm in no mood for protracted yakking at this time.
All right, Mr. Conklin. I'd like to borrow some money.
What?
Maybe I should have protracted the yakking a bit.
Miss Brooks, you know the stand I've always taken on lending money, and I see no point at this time in reiterating how I feel.
But, Mr. Conklin, it's an emergency. That cab driver you saw outside has been dogging my footsteps all day.
Well, that should be a change for you after the way you've dogged Mr. Boynton.
Please, Mr. Conklin. I owe him $8 cab fare. I have about $3 of it, but he won't leave me until I give him the remaining $5.
Miss Brooks, permit me to repeat one of my favorite axioms.
I'll do anything for you, sir, if you'll lend me the money. Absolutely anything.
Neither a borrower nor a lender be, for loan oft loses absolutely anything. Miss Brooks, there may be something you can do for me at that. You say you want $5?
Yes, sir.
I'll make it 10.
I'll call. What have you got in mind, sir?
Well, listen carefully. I was supposed to go up to Crystal Lake today, but Harriet got a phone message from Mr. Stone, which she was to give to me when she reached me. The message was for me to meet a Mr. Nichols at the train at 3 this afternoon, see that he was settled, and escort him around town for the next week. Are you following me, Miss Brooks?
Don't turn around or we'll have a collision.
Let's say, for argument's sake, that Harriet couldn't reach me, that I had already gone up to Crystal Lake. So instead, she contacted you.
But, sir, I don't quite see how
I'll
I can...
tell you. You will meet Mr. Nichols in my place and delay coming over here until Harriet and I are packed and out of town. For this, I will give you $10.
On behalf of Mr. Nichols' welcoming committee, Mr. Boynton and me, I accept. Now, if you'll excuse me. Hello again, Mr. Finch. Well, here's your $8 plus $5 for the rental of your car, which I'll bring back in a few hours.
What greater or better gift can we offer the Republic than to teach and instruct our youth?
The United States Army Europe and the United States Air Forces Europe agree with those famous words. That's why they see to it that you have the greatest educational opportunities ever offered military personnel. Just think of it. If you were a high school dropout or didn't finish high school for any reason at all, you can do it now while you're in the service. If you plan to go to college, you can get a head start by picking up credits now. And if you've already attended a college, it might even be possible to get your degree while you're over here in Europe. And by that, I mean either a bachelor's degree or a master's. Ask your education center about the American universities, which offer programs tailored to your needs. The University of Maryland, Boston U, Southern California, Utah, Ball State, and Oklahoma. Not to mention the school with the worldwide campus, USAPI. Don't pass up this golden opportunity to make your service time achievement time. Get in touch with your education center first thing tomorrow.
Later that day, with Mr. Boynton's assistance, I had put the plan into action.
Now, see here, Miss Brooks. It isn't that I don't appreciate you and Mr. Boynton calling for me, but according to Mr. Stone's telegram, I was supposed to go directly to Mr. Conklin's house.
Well, we are going there, Mr. Nichols.
Well, I know, but we've been driving for almost an hour.
Well, we might as well enjoy the town while we're going through it, Mr. Nichols.
Yes, that's the idea. It has so many points of interest. Now, right on your left over there is our Chinatown.
Chinatown? All I see is one restaurant.
Well, Rome wasn't built in a day. Or China, for that matter.
Miss Brooks, I was supposed...
You see that house over there, the real old one?
Oh, I don't want to hear about any more houses.
Oh, but this is simply fascinating, Mr. Nichols. You've heard of Lana Turner, of course.
Well, yes, but I...
Well, the woman who lives in that house has seen every picture she ever made.
Miss Brooks, I am supposed to stay with Mr. Conklin during my week in town, and I'd like to be taken there at once. Are we anywhere near it?
Well, it's not more than a few blocks away, sir.
Well, then I would like to get there in a hurry.
Yes, sir, but just let me point out this one place of interest on the...
Miss Brooks, watch out for that car. Look out!
Oh, good heaven!
Well, I think you only dented his fender.
How can you tell? It's still rolling across the street.
Uh-oh. The fellow's getting out of his car.
Well, at least I didn't knock off his sunglasses.
That has done it. That has absolutely done it. Of all the stupid, lame-brained, idiotic, careless, knuckle-headed... Oh, no!
Oh, no, Junior.
You two know each other?
Know each other? Oh, no, indeed. I never saw this man before in my life.
Oh, well, the accident was entirely our fault, sir. You have every right to be furious. She crashed right into you.
Yes. Well, accidents will happen in the best of families. Yes, indeed. Goodbye.
Now, wait a minute here. Aren't you going to take this woman's name and address?
Well, why should he? He's probably a happily married man, and there's no...
Oh, he's got to contact your insurance company. After all, you did knock a fender off his car.
Yes. Well, I'm sure that can be repaired. After all, what's a fender?
What's a fender?
He's got 3 more where that came from.
Certainly. Well, I must be running along. I'm on my way to my vacation. I don't want to delay any further.
But look here. This is a serious accident. Not only was your fender knocked off, but the front of this lady's car is smashed in. Miss Brooks, you're going to ask to see his license, aren't you?
Oh, I wouldn't want to embarrass him.
You wouldn't want to embarrass him?
For all I know, he's driving without one. And after all, he was nice enough not to ask for mine.
Yes, but Miss Brooks, how do you know he won't sue you?
Sir, What do you take me for? Now, if you'll excuse me, Mr. Nichols, I'll be
Mr.
on...
Nichols? Wait a minute. He called me Mr. Nichols.
Well, what did you expect him to call you? Mr. O'Brien?
How does he know my name is Nichols? You haven't mentioned it since we passed the garbage dump.
Well, where do you think he got the car he's driving?
I heard the crash all the way back on the porch. Holy smoke, look what's happened to my car.
Mr. Finch.
You smacked right into the side of Mr. Conklin's car, too. Mr. Conklin. His name is Conklin.
It'll be mud soon.
Oh, I think I'm beginning to see the light.
Give him your sunglasses, Mr. Conklin.
Oh. You were afraid I'd intercept you before you could sneak off on your vacation. Is that it?
I'd hate to have you as an opponent in the charade game.
Why, Mr. Nichols, what a preposterous idea.
Mr. Stone will most certainly hear about the treatment I have received.
Oh, now, Mr. Nichols, I'm sure that wasn't Mr. Conklin's intention at all. But we're all entitled to a vacation, and Mr. Conklin needs a rest. He was simply on his way to his place at Crystal Lake to do a little fishing.
Oh, fishing? well, that happens to be my favorite sport.
Wonderful. Then why don't you just pile into Mr. Conklin's car and go with him?
Say, that's not a bad idea. That's not bad at all. I have no plans for this weekend if Mr. Conklin...
By all means, Mr. Nichols. Come right along. Maybe you'd like to come along for a little fishing, too, Miss Brooks?
Oh, no, sir. I wouldn't want to impose. Besides, I remember what happened when you took me out on the lake last summer.
Last summer?
Yes, sir. This year, you might tip the rowboat all the way over.
Miss Brooks, starring Eve Arden, transcribed, was produced and directed by Larry Burns, written by Arthur Olsberg and Al Lewis, with the music of Lud Gluskin. Mr. Conklin was played by Gail Gordon.
Mr. Arnold, a gentleman is here about the position you advertised for.
In yesterday's paper.
Yeah, in yesterday's paper, Mr. Arnold. All right. Mr. Arnold asked if you've had specific experience in this field.
4 whole years?
4 whole years, Mr. Arnold. Mm-hmm. He wants to know if you've already been in the service.
1.5 whole years.
1.5 whole years, Mr. Arnold. Yes, sir. Honorable discharge, of course. He's shaking his head slowly, Mr. Arnold. I see.
What'd he say? What'd he say?
Don't call us. We'll call you.
Others in tonight's cast were Jane Morgan, Dick Crenna, Bob Rockwell, Gloria McMillan, Jerry Hausner, and Joseph Kearney.
Seated around.
Now it's Our Miss Brooks, starring Eve Arden. Well, to many school teachers, the end of June signifies more than just the completion of a term's work. It often ushers in romance and marriage. To our Miss Brooks, who teaches English at Madison High School, it also has a special significance.
It certainly has. To me, the end of June is significant because it ushers in July. Oh, it's not that Mr. Boynton hasn't asked me to marry him dozens of times. It's just he hasn't asked me once. I tried to forget about it, but last Saturday morning at breakfast, my landlady reopened the case.
Connie, I've been thinking, if you're going to be a June bride, we better step on it.
At last, a proposal.
I'm serious, dear. You've got to bring home to Mr. Boynton the fact that this is the month of romance, the time when all living creatures reach out to one another.
If I reach out any further, I'll look like a giraffe.
June is a wonderful month, Connie. My sister Angela and my brother Victor were married in June, you know. It was a double wedding. Angela and Victor married a half-brother and a half-sister.
Where were they married? In the little half church around the corner?
The boy's father was the girl's father as well, but his mother was her stepmother. Of course, her father was the boy's stepfather, but he had passed on by the time they were married, so he couldn't give the bride away.
What a pity.
So the bride's step-uncle gave her away. He was the boy's mother's half-brother, of course.
What else could he be?
It was a beautiful ceremony, Connie, and within 5 years, each couple had 3 little girls.
I bet there were 6 of the nicest half-step nieces you ever saw. Pass the cream, please, Mrs. Davis.
Here you are, dear. Now, you be a good kitty, Minerva. You've had your breakfast. She's so restless lately. Must be because she knows it's June.
How does she know it's... Oh, I keep forgetting. There's a calendar in the kitchen.
You know something, Connie? I think Minerva's engaged.
Really? Anyone I know?
I don't think so. He's a big Persian from the next block.
Wouldn't she be happier with a cat? Forgive me, Minerva.
That's funny. She keeps looking toward the kitchen door. I wonder why.
Now you know.
Oh, must be your friend from the next block. Now, Minerva, I wouldn't go out there if I were you.
I would. If you'll excuse me, Mrs. Davis, I'd better start primping a bit. It's 9 o'clock already, and Mr. Boynton's coming over at 12. Oh, he can't be this early. I'll see who it is.
All right, Connie. I'll take Minerva out in the backyard for a while and get some sun.
Fine, Mrs. Davis. Well, it's Walter Denton.
Greetings, Miss Brooks. And how is Madison's fairest teacher this balmy June morning?
Fairly balmy, thanks. Come in. I was just having some coffee. Would you like something to eat, or have you had your breakfast, as if that made any difference?
You're right on all counts, Miss Brooks. If there's one thing I can always do, usually it's eat.
Yeah, I've noticed that usually. Just sit down, Walter. I'll boil you a dozen eggs.
No, thanks, Miss Brooks. I've got other things besides food on my mind today.
Oh?
It's Harriet Conklin. We've decided upon a June wedding.
You and Harriet?
Yeah, that's right, Miss Brooks. That's why I'm too excited to think about food. So I'll just have some rolls and this cheese and marmalade and maybe a little honey with my milk and cookies.
Well, that beats eating when you're nervous. Now, what is all this about June weddings? You and Harriet are just kids, Walter.
Oh, we're not planning to get married this June, but we're thinking of setting the date for some future June. You see, I've still got 2 more years of high school, and then I want to go to college. Now, I don't think I ought to get married before I get out of college, do you?
Definitely not, Walter.
Yeah, well, that's what Harriet thinks, too. So, speaking as one who is intimately acquainted with my scholastic achievements, Miss Brooks, what year do you think we can shoot at?
1981.
Oh, there you go, kidding me again. No, I think 61 should do it very nicely. Of course, there's some slight opposition to our impending nuptials from a quarter very close to my intended.
Namely?
Her father. Oh, Mr. Conklin can't stand the sight of me.
What's so funny about that?
Oh, I'm not laughing at that. I'm laughing at the thought of how ridiculous he'll look in 1961.
Ridiculous?
Well, sure. Now, there he'll be after 6 years of aggravation, standing around on a hot June day in a frock coat and heavy striped pants, watching his only daughter marry some jerk he can't stand the sight of.
You're not giving yourself any of the best of it, Walter. Why, in 6 years, the entire picture could change.
It can?
Of course. Mr. Conklin may be wearing a tuxedo.
You know, Miss Brooks, Harriet and I have often talked about what a beautiful June bride you'd make. It's a shame that Mr. Boynton's so non-aggressive.
We have a non-aggression pact. But he's improving all the time. We've got a red-hot date set for this afternoon.
No kidding. Where's he taking you?
To a matinee square dance at the Armory.
The square dance, huh? Boy, you sure got a head start for it.
What's that?
Well, if you'll pardon my frankness, Miss Brooks, the kids at school, although they're all very fond of Mr. Boynton, have a pet expression about him.
What is it?
They say he's got corners on his head.
You mean the kids think Mr. Boynton is a square?
He ain't round.
Please, Walter, he's not round.
You can say that again.
I just did.
Now, what Mr. Boynton needs is some of the old oil.
Old oil?
Yeah, like Mr. LeBlanche, the French teacher, has. Gosh, every time a woman comes near him, he is a walking gusher.
Now, Walter, that's no way to talk about a member of the faculty. Mr. LeBlanche isn't oily at all. He's just polished. Polished and sleek and smooth and...
Oily?
He's a walking gusher. I mean, Mr. LeBlanche is a very fine French teacher.
You want me to answer the door, Miss Brooks?
No, Walter, you finish eating. You do finish sometime, don't you? Coming!
Bonjour, Miss Brooks. I hope I do not intrude.
Well, speak of the devil.
Pardon?
I said, speak of the devil, Mr. LeBlanche.
Oh, but why? That is... Why should an angel speak of the devil? Hmm?
Would you flow into the living room, please? Sit down, won't you?
Thank you. I would like to come right to the point, Miss Brooks. Why? Because we do not have time to beat any bushes.
Fine, then let's not beat any.
Miss Brooks, I would like for you to do me a little favor this afternoon.
What kind of favor, Mr. LeBlanche?
I would like you to marry me.
Qu'est-ce que c'est? That means, huh?
I said I would like you to marry me this afternoon. Oh, of course, it wouldn't be you I am really marrying with, but Georgette.
Georgette?
I will explain, Miss Brooks. Although I have long been an American citizen, I spent last summer in Paris. There I met another school teacher.
Georgette.
No, Jacques. Now, Jacques Poirot. He it was who introduced me to this lovely girl, and soon we go, how you say, steadily.
Goodly for you.
For 6 months we are inseparable.
You and Georgette?
No, the three of us. First, we are all just good friends, but after I return to America, Georgette falls madly in love with me.
And not a minute too soon.
Oh, now, you do not understand, Miss Brooks. I had almost forgotten Georgette. Then, a few weeks ago, she writes me that Jacques has gone to the Riviera. She is very melancholy, and she wants to come to America immediately. Now, how can one come immediately without red tapes? Only one way. Marry an American citizen by proxy.
This sounds like the French version of Life Can Be Beautiful. Mr. LeBlanche, if I understand you correctly, and I don't see why I should, you want me to marry you in Georgette's name, is that right?
Exactly, Miss Brooks. But it must be extremely confidential. I wouldn't want anyone at Madison to know about it. Please, Miss Brooks, say you'll do it?
Well, I don't know, Mr. LeBlanc. I'd like to think it over.
Oh, there is no time to think it over. Georgette has cabled me that she is anxious to become a June bride. Speaking for myself, I can only say, grande chose, une épouse de juin.
What does that mean?
June bride, big deal. You know how women are when they are getting married.
No, but it might be fun finding out. Mr. LeBlanc, I'll do it.
Wonderful, Miss Brooks.
Well, I was so excited at the prospect of being a proxy June bride that I completely forgot about Walter Denton. By the time I returned to the dinette, he'd left by the back door after quietly eating 2 legs off the breakfast table. I was just about to join Mrs. Davis in the yard when the doorbell rang. Oh, hello, Mr. Boynton. Come in.
No, thanks, Miss Brooks. I'd rather wait out here in the air for you. You're all ready to go, aren't you?
To go?
Sure. Go see Doe, form a line, come on in, the dancing's fine.
Oh, that. Well, do-si-do, you'll have to wait. Can't tell you why. I'm postponing our date.
Postponing it?
It's extremely confidential, Mr. Boynton. You see, it isn't just me. I mean, well, I'm doing something today that
You know, I've never seen you quite so flustered, Miss Brooks. Gosh, you're as nervous as a June bride.
It should happen to both of us. Look, Mr. Boynton, if you'll just go home now, I'll call you as soon as I'm free. Then maybe later on I can explain it to you.
All right, Miss Brooks, but try not to be too late. I'd hate you to miss too much of it. You know, the square dance goes back a good way in our history. Originally of English origin, the hill folks in our southern states adapted it to their own rhythms and tempos. They changed its form and reorganized its pattern.
Then they nursed it, rehearsed it, and gave out the news that the Southland gave birth to the blues. It's a very interesting topic, Mr. Boynton, but I really must ask you to excuse me now.
Oh, very well, Miss Brooks. You'll call me later on?
Yes, I will. Oh, before you go, would you mind bending down a bit?
Bending down?
Yes, this way. Thanks. Those kids are crazy. He hasn't got any corners on his head.
What?
Oh, nothing, Mr. Boynton. I'll see you later.
Goodbye, Miss Brooks.
Excuse me, Connie, but I couldn't help overhearing your conversation just now.
Oh, that's all right, Mrs. Davis. Nothing personal.
Nothing personal. Do you always go square dancing with another man on your wedding day?
Huh?
Oh, Connie, it isn't that I don't want to see you happily married. What hurts is that you didn't take me into your confidence.
But obviously I have.
No, I had to hear it secondhand. Walter Denton told me before he left. He overheard you and Mr. LeBlanc through the living room door.
Just what did he hear, Mrs. Davis?
He heard all about the marriage license and the justice of the peace. Right after he told me about it, he left.
Oh, great. That kid talks almost as fast as he eats. Well, Mr. LeBlanc may not know it, but he's just become the co-owner of the best-known secret in town.
Gee, Harry, I'm glad I caught you out on the porch. I've got
Quiet, Walter. Daddy's trying to take a nap on the hammock. Come on over here.
Oh, okay, Harriet. Now, guess what?
What?
Miss Brooks is getting married.
No! Why, I never thought that Mr. Boynton had it in him.
He hasn't. She's not marrying Mr. Boynton. She's marrying Mr. LeBlanc.
The French teacher? Well, but they haven't even gone together.
Yeah, they'll be going together after today. They're getting married about 1 o'clock this afternoon.
How do you know all this, Walter?
There's nothing wrong with my ears, is there? That's when I heard him say he'd be back with the justice of the peace and the license.
Oh, but this is awful. What about Mr. Boynton? I know. She's just doing this because it's June and he didn't propose to her again. It's a spite marriage, that's what it is.
Yeah, I guess you're right, Harriet.
We can't let her go through with it.
But what can we do? We're just pupils of hers.
Oh, you're right. This requires adult advice. We've got to wake Daddy.
Okay.
Well, go ahead. Wake him.
Oh, no, not me, Harriet. Now, I've seen our esteemed principal when somebody wakes him up. You'd better do it. He wouldn't swing on a girl.
Oh, all right. Daddy? Oh, Daddy, get up. You've got to get up, Daddy.
What? What's the trouble? Oh, I'm glad you woke me, Harriet. I was having a nightmare. There I was in a schoolroom teaching again.
Listen, Daddy.
And that's not all. The class consisted of 40 boys, all with one face. Walter Denton's face. It was terrible.
Please, Daddy. Look who's here.
Oh, Mr. Conklin. What's the matter?
It's just a dream, Denton. I'm bound to wake up pretty soon.
You've got to help us, Daddy. Miss Brooks is getting married.
Now I know I'm dreaming. Harriet, did you say Miss Brooks is getting married?
That's just what I said.
I didn't think Mr. Boynton had it in him.
Well, at the risk of sounding repetitious, he hasn't. She's marrying Mr. LeBlanche.
But it's just a spite marriage, Daddy, and you've got to stop it.
Me? What have I got to do with all this?
But don't you see, Daddy? If she marries the wrong man, it'll not only ruin her life, but also ruin her career as one of Madison's best teachers.
Well, experienced teachers are becoming harder to get right now. What do you suggest, my dear?
I suggest we contact Mr. Boynton.
Thank you, dear. We'll contact me.
Shut up, Dad!
I was talking to my daughter.
Walter's right. We should get in touch with Mr. Boynton. But meanwhile, we'll have to plan some delaying action.
Well, this reminds me of my army days. As an ex-major, I shouldn't have any trouble in deploying my forces with the utmost efficiency in this campaign. Harriet, you get my shoes?
Yes, sir.
And what should I do, Major?
You? About face? What? What? Well, when Miss Brooks agreed to act as a proxy bride so that Monsieur LeBlanche could marry his French sweetheart, she overlooked the fact that Walter Denton was in the kitchen at the time. Since then, Madison's version of Paul Revere has erroneously taken the news to every Hamilton town that Miss Brooks intends to spend the rest of her life cooking crepe Suzettes. Later that day, Mrs. Davis was helping her prepare for the wedding.
Oh, that was a very cute idea you had, Mrs. Davis, for me to wear a white dress and your old bridal veil. Mr. LeBlanc should get a big kick out of it.
You do look lovely, Connie. But I wish it were Mr. Boynton you were marrying, and not as a proxy. Oh, I'll answer it, Connie. Well, it's Mr. LeBlanc.
How do you do, Mrs. Davis? This is Judge Stevens. How do you do, Mrs. Davis?
Well, glad to know you, Judge. Come in, won't you?
Thank you.
Miss Brooks is right in the living room here. Just follow me.
There you are, Miss Brooks. This is the justice will marry us, Judge Stevens. Miss Brooks.
Glad to know you, my dear. I must say you make a most ravishing bride.
Well, I hope to someday.
Someday? But aren't you being married today?
Oh, of course we are, of course. Judge, would you mind opening the door, please? It's a bit warm in here.
Very well.
I did not get a chance to explain everything to the justice, Miss Brooks. I had many papers to sign, and then I sent a cable to Georgette telling her where she was being married. But now it's all set.
Oh, good.
Now then, let's proceed, shall we? There are several services to choose from, folks. Do you want a lengthy one or a brief one?
Oh, the brief one, by all means. I've got a date to go to a square dance as soon as it's over.
Isn't that a little unusual, Mr. LeBlanc?
Oh, Mr. LeBlanc isn't going with me.
He isn't?
No, I have a date to go bowling.
Why?
No, you don't, but you will in a minute. You see, Judge, Miss Brooks is just a proxy for one Georgette Duval. I have the papers right here that say when this ceremony is over, I am married with Georgette.
Well, This is certainly one of the most unusual ceremonies I've ever performed.
Me too, but we'd better start performing if Georgette's going to be married this month. Personally, I always say, grande chose une épouse de juin.
What does that mean?
June bride, big deal.
Yes. Now let's see. We'll need 2 witnesses.
I'll be a witness.
And I'll be the other one.
Oh, but you are the bride. You cannot witness your own wedding.
Who can't? Wait till you see me catch the bridal bouquet I throw.
This is all highly irregular, but in view of the circumstances, I guess we can waive the other witnesses. Now let's take up our positions in front of this window and begin. There we are. Dearly beloved, we are gathered here to join this man and this woman in the bonds of matrimony. And so, if anyone here knows of any reason why these 2 should not be united in matrimony, let him speak now or forever. Halt!
Who goes there?
Why, it's Mr. Conklin and Harriet.
You can't do this thing, Miss Brooks.
Oh, please, Harriet, it's practically done. Now, if you and Mr. Conklin will just sit down.
Sit down. It will just take a few minutes more, Mr. Conklin.
You stay out of this, LeBlanche. Miss Brooks isn't marrying you because she loves you.
Of course not. She's just doing me a favor. A favor?
Big-hearted Brooks, they call me.
Perhaps I had better explain. You see, Mr. Conklin, Miss Brooks is just a proxy for a girl in Paris. We can come to this country only when we are man and wife.
You mean Miss Brooks isn't really getting married at all?
Don't make it sound so final, Harriet, but that's the idea.
Well. May I proceed now?
With your permission, Mr. Conklin.
Oh, of course. Go right ahead. Wait till I get my hands on that blabbermouth Denton.
Let's see now. Where was I? Oh, yes. If anyone here knows of any reason why these 2 should not be united in matrimony, let him speak now or forever.
Hold the presses! I mean, stop this wedding at once.
Well, here comes Blabbermouth now.
You've made a terrible mistake, Walter.
I've made a mistake. Miss Brooks is the one who's making the mistake. But fortunately, I'm here in time to rectify it.
Come here, Denton.
Well, Mr. Conklin, have I or have I not successfully completed my mission?
You've done a grand job, my boy. And I'd like to be the first to shake you by the throat.
Mr. Boynton, you better come in now.
I wish someone would tell me what this is all... Miss Brooks, Mr. LeBlanche, Mrs. Davis.
Oh, now, do not get the wrong impression, Mr. Boynton. This wedding is merely a formality.
That ought to put his mind at ease.
This is terribly sudden, isn't it, Miss Brooks?
It's just a proxy wedding, Mr. Boynton. Miss Brooks is substituting for a girl in Paris.
A girl in Paris?
I wish I could finish this ceremony.
Yes. Please do.
If anyone else here knows of any reason why these 2 should not be united in matrimony, let him speak now or forever.
Excuse me, but I got a cablegram here for Mr. LeBlanche.
I am Paul LeBlanche. Let me see the cablegram. It's from Georgette. It says, please cancel plans for proxy wedding. Jacques Poirot and I were married this morning. Would like to have waited a while, but Jacques insisted that we be married this month. Sorry, Georgette. P.S. June bride, big deal.
Well, I guess there won't be anything for me to do around here.
Oh, just a minute, Judge.
Oh?
I don't think all these preparations should go to waste.
Why, Mr. Boynton, what are you driving at?
You'll see. Miss Brooks, please stand over here by my side.
Yes, Mr. Boynton?
Walter and Harriet, you get over there.
Okay, Mr. Boynton.
Mrs. Davis, Mr. Conklin on our left. Thank you.
And now, Mr. Boynton?
Well, now we can have our own square dance. Oh, do-si-do and form a line. Come on in, the dancing's fine.
Oh, look at me. Instead of being wed, I'm dancing with the fellow who's got corners on his head.
Now, Miss Brooks, starring Eve Arden, transcribed, was produced and directed by Larry Burns, written by Joe Quillen and Al Lewis with the music of Wilbur Hatch. Mr. Conklin was played by Gail Gordon.
Brill did needle me into a wager, but new hat or not, Jason Brill's request to Mr. Stone to review our team's scholastic records at this time is contemptible.
Then why give Snodgrass a quiz at all, sir?
Because Mr. Stone has complied with Brill's request and ordered me to do so. However, there are more ways than one to skin a Brill.
Skin a Brill? Oh, that's very good, Mr. Conklin.
It's not that good.
No, it's not.
Now then, I have concocted some questions which I trust Snodgrass can answer. But since I am a man of such unwavering scholastic integrity, I wanted you two in here to witness the fairness of the test. Do you follow me?
Right into a suspension. I mean, yes, sir.
Ah, this must be Snodgrass now. Come in.
Good morning, Stretch.
Hello, Miss Brooks. Hi, Mr. Boynton.
I hope you don't mind my asking Miss Brooks and Mr. Boynton to sit in while I give you your quiz, Snodgrass.
Oh, no, sir. I certainly ain't got no objections to them two, especially Miss Brooks. Gosh, I never learned no more from no teacher than I learned in her English class.
Quiet, Stretch, or we'll both be ineligible.
Now, Snodgrass, we are all pulling for you, boy. Don't leave us down. Let us down. I've decided to give you a simple verbal or oral examination.
Either one's okay with me.
We're dead.
Now, question A is a geography question. Have you done much traveling, Snodgrass?
No, sir. That was pretty easy, wasn't it?
That wasn't the question. Now, here it is. In traveling between New York and Philadelphia, through what cities do you pass?
Oh, let's see. My uncle made that trip once. Trenton, Jersey, Cleveland, St. Louis, and Omaha.
Great. Just how was your uncle traveling?
On a troop train.
Oh, sir, it just wouldn't be patriotic not to accept that answer.
You're right. You're right. Our next question is one involving logic. Now listen carefully before you answer. A bat is to baseball as a wallet is to horseback riding, cheese, or money.
It is? Not all three of them, Stretch. You have your choice. Oh, okay. Horseback riding.
No, I'm afraid I can't accept that.
Well, I thought you gave me my choice.
Now, don't be an Indian giver, Mr. Conklin. Look, Stretch.
Permit me to question him, Miss Brooks. I have as much right to a nervous breakdown as anyone. Now, look, Stretch. A bat must be the same to baseball as a wallet is to money, mustn't it?
Not my wallet.
Next question. Let us assume you are a mailman standing on 1st Avenue, and your route starts at 2nd Avenue and ends at 4th Avenue. Your bag contains 4 pounds of mail for 2nd Avenue, 8 pounds for 3rd Avenue, and 14 pounds for 4th Avenue. You sling the bag over your shoulder, and what's the first thing you do?
I fall down.
Yes? In the next question, you are to rearrange the sentence I give you and tell me whether it's true or false.
I don't think I'll pitch again this year.
No, it's very simple. Honestly, it is. Now, here we go. Oranges, yellow are. Now, what is that?
Bad English.
I know it's bad English. I did that purposely. Now, is it true or false? Oranges, yellow are.
Yellow are than what?
That's the sentence. If you rearrange the words, it's oranges are yellow.
Gee, well, I always thought yellow oranges were called lemons.
Stretch, Mr. Conklin made the statement, oranges are yellow. Is he right or wrong?
Wrong.
Absolutely correct. How did you ever get it?
Well, if she'd asked me about you, I'd have said wrong long ago. Those oranges that fouled me up. Well, can I pitch this afternoon?
Only if you get out of here while you're ahead. Hurry up now, scoop.
Yes, ma'am.
Wait, no. Miss Brooks, since when do you take it upon yourself to... Osgood Conklin, principal speaking. Oh, hello, Mr. Stone. What an opportune time for you to call, sir. Snodgrass has just passed the general quiz I gave him, and he'll be able to pitch for what you mean he won't be able to pitch. What? But why not, sir? He did. Yes, Mr. Stone. I'll be here when you arrive. Goodbye.
What did he say?
He said that Stretch is about to be declared ineligible again.
But why?
Because of professionalism, Miss Brooks. Mr. Stone is coming over at 3 this afternoon to investigate the situation personally.
But I don't understand, sir. How could Stretch be accused of professionalism?
It seems he attended the circus last night, and while he was there, he accepted money for lasting one round against someone billed as the blindfolded marvel.
Despite all our efforts to make Stretch Snodgrass eligible for the big game with Clay City, it looked like we were stymied. Mr. Brill's charge of professionalism was a serious one. When I met Mr. Boynton in the school cafeteria, we determined to hold a council of war. However, even this was interrupted by an emergency message to call Mrs. Davis at home. When I did so, she recognized my voice immediately.
I'm so glad you called, Henry.
Mrs. Davis, do you know who this is?
Of course I do. Please send over 2.5 pounds of liver. Our cat is on a high-protein diet.
Mrs. Davis, this is Connie.
Why, Connie, what are you doing in the butcher shop?
I'm not in the butcher shop. I'm at school. You left word for me to call you back.
Well, there's no sense brooding about it. Anyway, if Stretch does pitch, and we do win today, I've made up my mind to take you to the circus tonight.
Really?
Mm-hmm. Remember the swell time we had at the circus last year?
It was fun at that. At least until you tried to stay one round with that prize fighter who billed himself the blindfolded marvel.
Well, it was worth a try at the $50 he was offering, wasn't it? As I recall, I needed the money for some work my dentist was doing on my teeth.
Oh, that's right. And after the fight, you had less teeth to worry about. But on second thought, why pay good money to see a circus when we can catch a free one at school?
Well, what do you mean, Miss Brooks?
Maybe Mr. Conklin will let us watch Stretch trying to answer that quiz. Well, we got to school in plenty of time today, Mr. Boynton. I guess it's just as well that we didn't go... Oh, here's Walter Denton.
I wish I could say good morning, but it isn't. This may well be the blackest day in Madison's history.
Come now, Walter. All hope isn't lost.
Oh, just about, Mr. Boynton. The Yoder Critch Memorial Cup is about to become the permanent property of the students of Clay City High.
But the game hasn't even been played yet.
That's right, Walter. We may still win that loving cup.
Are you kidding, Mr. Boynton? Without Stretch, we couldn't win a moist paper cup.
Is that the reason you're walking around like a St. Bernard with a hangover?
Well, what other reason could there be? You don't think for one moment the 4 weeks allowance I've bet on the game has anything to do with it.
Well, if Stretch passes Mr. Conklin's quiz this morning, you may still win your bet, Walter.
Well, whatever chance he did have went out the window last night, Miss Brooks. While all we loyal, industrious pupils were home studying, Stretch was at the circus.
How do you know?
Yeah, I sat right in back of him. Not only that, he was with Judy Brill.
Jason Brill's daughter?
I doubt if Judy's his son. But Mr. Brill isn't missing a single bet to keep Stretch from playing, is he?
I'll say he's not. Judy even got Stretch to fight the blindfolded marvel.
He didn't. Was he badly hurt?
Sure. Stretch almost killed him. One punch and he was colder than Mr. Conklin's heart. Well, I never saw such
What was that about Mr. Conklin's heart, Denton?
Hello, Mr. Conklin. Yeah, I was saying nothing was bolder than your heart, sir.
I'm pressed for time, so I'll accept that for now. Miss Brooks, Mr. Boynton, I'm glad I ran into you. I'd like you to come into my office for a few minutes. I want your assistance.
Oh, could you use me too, sir?
Not even as a bookend. Now, come along, you two. Yes, sir. Now, please sit down. No doubt you are aware of the intense rivalry existing between Jason Brill and myself. That the man will go to any lengths to defeat my school is evidenced by his latest bit of skullduggery in trying to eliminate my star pitcher from today's game.
Yes, sir, and we don't think it's a bit fair.
And neither do I, Miss Brooks. But it isn't the victory that's so important to me. It's the spirit of decency, good sportsmanship, and my new hat. Friendly competition. That should prevail.
Your new hat, sir?
Well, to be perfectly frank, that odious...
Now it's Our Miss Brooks, starring Eve Arden. Well, the lessons to be learned on the athletic field are an important part of school activities, as our Miss Brooks, who teaches English at Madison High, is the first to admit. And in this sphere, there's nothing quite like the friendly baseball rivalry between Madison and Clay City High.
No, indeed. There's been nothing quite as friendly since the Martins clobbered the Coys. The traditional Madison Clay High baseball game has been a no-holds-barred affair for 30 years. And this year's game promised to be the bitterest of all, since the winner would gain permanent possession of the Silver Loving Cup provided by Madison's founder, Yodar Critch. Without our star pitcher, Stretch Snodgrass, though, we wouldn't have much chance to win. And this catastrophe seemed imminent last Thursday morning as Mr. Boynton was driving me to school. It's nice to have you driving me to school for a change. Instead of Walter Denton, I mean.
Oh, I'm glad to oblige, Miss Brooks. His car is laid up, as I understand.
Yes, I think it has a touch of the virus.
Would you mind sitting a little closer to me, please?
No, I wouldn't mind at all. There, is that better?
A little closer yet.
All righty. How's that?
Still closer.
Why, Mr. Boynton, what's behind these unexpected overtures?
Those springs you were sitting on are about to go right through the upholstery.
Oh, well, is that...
See? You hadn't moved, you would have landed right in my lap.
Now he tells me.
Well, this old car isn't much, but I'd hate to lose it. At least it gets me where I want to go, and it never runs out of gas.
Then it'll never get me where I want to go. That is, I can see why you want to hang on to it.
Well, that's just it, Miss Brooks. I don't know if I'll be able to.
Why not? Does it use too much coal? Or oil? But it's all paid for, isn't it?
Yes, but... Well, George Gifford, Clay City's biology teacher, has been needling me for weeks on how badly Clay City was going to beat Madison this year. You know how I disapprove of gambling, but finally my baser instincts got the better of me, and I agreed to a wager.
A wager, Mr. Boynton?
Mm-hmm. I agreed to bet him this car.
Against what?
The new suit.
Well, if he didn't throw in an extra pair of pants, you got the worst of it. But all in all, I guess it's a fair bet.
Well, it was until a few days ago. But if Stretch can't pitch today, we're sunk. When Clay High's principal, Jason Brill, asked the head of the Board of Education to review the scholastic records of the two teams, he knew exactly what he was doing. Stretch's head was the only one really on the block.
Well, that part of him we can spare. It's his arm we can't afford to lose.
You know what I mean, Miss Brooks. I don't think his record will stand the inspection of the cold light of day.
His record won't stand inspection on a hot night in a coal mine. But he may still be eligible to pitch today if he can pass the general quiz the board ordered Mr. Conklin to give him.
I'm afraid he has about as much chance as a...
Well, maybe one snowball didn't melt down there. Back at once said it was an emergency.
Oh, that explains it. I left word for the butcher to call me back at once, too. When I say it's emergency, everyone calls me back immediately.
Well, you're liable to call Wolf once too often.
Oh, no danger of that, dear. I don't know anybody named Wolf. Now, let's see. What was your emergency? Oh, yes. I wanted to know if Stretch passed his quiz this morning.
Yes, he passed, Mrs. Davis, but...
Well, that's a relief. It's not only that I wanted to see him pitch, but, well, I have a little confession to make.
A confession?
Yes. I made a little bet with Mrs. Jackson, the math teacher at Play City High.
What did you bet, Mrs. Davis?
I bet your room, Connie.
My room? Against what?
A cedar chest.
Oh, well, I hope it's comfortable.
Mrs. Jackson's been looking for a room for quite a while, Connie. But there's nothing to worry about, really. With Stretch pitching, Madison's a sure thing.
But Stretch has been accused of professionalism, Mrs. Davis. It's almost certain he'll be declared ineligible.
Oh, that's terrible, Connie. We've got to win that game. Is there anything I can do?
I doubt it, Mrs. Davis. I don't think you're in shape to pitch 9 innings. Well, I've got to get back to lunch now. I'll talk to you later.
All right, Connie. Goodbye.
Goodbye, dear. Well, of all the crazy bets to make.
Hello, Miss Brooks.
Oh, hello, Harriet. You look as if you'd heard about Stretch's predicament.
I have. Oh, and Daddy wants you to be in his office to greet Mr. Stone when he gets here right after school. Daddy had to go downtown about something, and he won't be back until after 3.
All right. Does your father think Stretch has any chance of being declared eligible today?
No, Miss Brooks. Mr. Stone's re-election as head of the Board of Education comes up in 2 weeks, and Daddy says this is a golden opportunity for him to display his thoroughness. But don't forget he's got Stretch on 2 counts, professionalism and brawling in public.
One more, and he won't even be eligible for parole.
Poor Stretch. He doesn't even know he's not going to pitch today.
Well, he will in a minute. He's coming over now.
Hi, Miss Brooks. Hi, Harriet. Boy, the old soup bone feels great. I'm really rearing to go this afternoon.
Yeah, and we're rearing to see you go, Stretch. I'm afraid I have some bad news for you. It looks like you're not going to pitch this afternoon after all.
Well, why not? I passed the quiz this morning, didn't I? So I'm eligible to pitch, ain't I?
You're illegible to pitch?
Well, if you admit it, what's all the talk about?
Well, that's just it, Stretch. You're not illegible. Illegible. Illegal.
Eligible, Miss Brooks?
Well, I was getting warmer. Stretch, you've been charged with professionalism.
Professionalism? Well, that's a lie. I ain't never been no professor in my life.
That I can vouch for. But the professionalism of which you're accused stems from your knocking out the blindfolded marvel at the circus last night and taking money for it.
Oh, that. That's true. I flattened the poor fellow, but I didn't get no money for it yet.
You didn't?
What?
No, ma'am. The Marvel's bringing over the money himself right after school. He told me so on the phone.
Oh, but that's great, Stretch. Until the money's actually in your hands, you're not a professional.
Oh, I guess I ain't. But I told the guy to meet me in front of Mr. Conklin's office. I had to make it a simple place because